Catherine the Great was the longest reigning female monarch in Russia's history, ruling for 34 years over the largest country in the world. But while her legacy is one of power and influence, she was also known for having a very active sex life. Welcome to my channel, and today we're exploring Catherine the Great's secret bedroom rules. How lust ruled an empire. Make sure to subscribe if you love anything related to royalty, history, or mystery. Catherine's love life was certainly not scandalous by modern standards, but for the time period and especially her social standing, it was outrageous. She had at least 20 known lovers during her lifetime, and many historians believe that number is closer to 30. One of them was Gregory, a former footman who became her first great lover and one of her most trusted advisors. The affair resulted in 2 of Catherine's children, Paul and Anna, but only Paul survived infancy. Her second great lover was Stanislav Potocki. The two had a passionate affair, but he never quite fit in with the Russian court, and so their relationship eventually came to an end. A close friend of Potocki's, Prince Alexei Razumovsky, then took his place in Catherine's heart. He was around for 10 years, appearing in nearly every portrait with the Empress. While all these affairs were kept under wraps, Catherine's marriage to her cousin, Grand Duke Peter of Holstein-Gottorp, was not. They exchanged letters before they met and made a good impression on each other when they finally wed. But soon after, Catherine discovered that her husband wasn't exactly, shall we say, performing up to par in the bedroom. To make matters worse, Peter seemed more interested in partying than fulfilling his royal duties. While Catherine wanted nothing more than an heir, Peter couldn't be bothered. These days, we might suggest couples counseling or maybe just a change of scenery. But back then, it was more common for the woman to simply find someone else to satisfy her needs, and so Catherine did just that. When it comes to intimate encounters, there are certain rules that one should always follow. Just ask any seasoned lover. But Catherine, being the Empress of all Russia, didn't have time for romantic rendezvous during the day. Instead, she set aside 2 evenings a week specifically for carnal knowledge. On those nights, she would escape her royal obligations and slip into something more comfortable, literally. A silk nightgown with short sleeves and a low neck that exposed her ample bosom, cinched at the waist with a wide leather belt that tied in a bow behind her back. It sounds downright racy for someone of her status. But there were rules for these trysts. The first rule was that no one could enter her chambers unless invited. This included her ladies-in-waiting, who had to wait until she had finished with her clandestine meetings before entering. If they were needed for anything, a special knock was established. 3 sharp raps on the door meant that one of the ladies-in-waiting was needed inside immediately. Any knock with 3 slow taps meant that Catherine was fine to continue with whatever she was doing without interruption. So, yes, that is correct. Catherine the Great, Empress of all Russia, communicated with her ladies-in-waiting through a knock-counting system. We can only imagine what the rest of the knocks meant. Perhaps for slow knocks was code for, "Come in and join me." The second rule was that her lovers could only please her on one condition. They had to remain silent about their encounters. Secrets were, of course, the most important part of keeping a royal affair discreet. The punishment for revealing her lovers' identities was swift and brutal. That punishment was banishment from St. Petersburg and never speaking of the affair again. In fact, it was rumored that Catherine even had her lovers killed if word got out that they were sleeping with her. However, this isn't entirely true. While she did have some of her lovers exiled, there are no records of her having any of them put to death. Still, that doesn't mean that her lovers were safe once they left her bed. The former Countess, Elisaveta Voronkova, was one of Catherine's mistresses before she ascended to the throne. And when she did become Empress, she immediately sent Voronkova away, never to return to her chambers again. And the artist who painted many portraits of Catherine with her lovers mysteriously died under unclear circumstances. Rumors swirled that Catherine had him poisoned, but that has yet to be confirmed. Her third rule was that none of her lovers could be older than her. Catherine began sleeping around when she was still a teenager, beginning with her music teacher Johann Christopher von Mack when she was only 15 years old. While this may seem shocking now, it was fairly common back then for young girls to start having sexual experiences. Girls often entered into such relationships as a way to please their fathers or advance their social standing. Catherine was no exception. When she was still just a young girl living in the Russian court, she slept with suitors, clergy members, random nobles, and even her cousin, the future Emperor Peter III. When she was only 17, it seems she developed a taste for younger men, because as an adult, she only sought out lovers who were younger than her. Rule No. 4 was that she didn't want to hear complaints. When her husband failed to consummate their marriage and Catherine decided to take matters into her own hands, she needed her lovers to keep things light-hearted and fun. No complaints or negative talk of any kind was allowed in her bedroom. The mood had to be light and fun, or at least that's what the historical accounts say. The reality might have been much different, considering how many lovers she had. It's possible that things didn't always go as planned. Still, Catherine demanded that everything was kept light. If her lovers had issues, they needed to be dealt with outside the bedroom. Rule No. 5 was that none of her lovers could be bald. All of them had to be dashing, virile young men with flowing locks. Perhaps that's why she commissioned so many portraits of herself with her lovers, so that she could look back on her favorites later. She might have lost interest in them quickly, but she would always have the memory of their luscious locks gracing the canvases. Catherine the Great's final rule for her lovers was that she could invite anyone she wanted into the bedroom. Even though she had her own preferences, Catherine didn't want her lovers to think that they had a claim to her affection. At any time, she could bring in another man and there was nothing her lover could do about it. She would often invite 8 men over at a time. So it's not hard to imagine that her lovers were unexactly thrilled at the prospect of a new man joining them in bed. But this was also her way of ensuring that none of her lovers ever felt too important to be replaced. In total, Catherine spent roughly 1 night a week engaging in adulterous activity. After her lover left her chambers, she would record the date in a special diary, noting whether she'd climaxed or not. Historians aren't sure if she wrote down the names of her lovers as well, but given the secrets involved, that's unlikely. What is likely is that the names of at least some of her lovers were recorded by others and leaked to the public. If a man was caught spreading rumors about his time with the Empress, he was immediately banished from the kingdom. Others who remained quiet were rewarded handsomely with titles, money, land, and positions of power. While Catherine was often called a nymphomaniac and mocked for her active sex life, she used it to her advantage. Men will often do anything for sex, and Catherine knew that. She used her lovers to get information and advance her career. In turn, she gave them promotions and rewards. Had she been an American, she'd have been called a boss babe for sure. Catherine the Great's bedroom may have been a place of pleasure, but it was also a place of business. The only thing that mattered in there was her. She was the most powerful woman in the room, perhaps in all of Russia, and she made sure everyone knew it. While her rules may have seemed odd to us now, they served her well throughout her decades-long reign. What did you think of Catherine the Great's bedroom rules? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.